Thank you very much for the invitation to come and talk to you today. Jerry asked me to come and talk and give a little bit of a context to why BBSRC thinks that agri-food skills are important. For those of you who don't know, BBSRC is one of 7 of the research councils funded by the UK taxpayer to invest in the research base in the UK. So I was going to give a little bit of a historical perspective, not quite 100 years worth, but certainly in the past 4 to 5 years is where we are and where we're going in terms of agri-food skills. So here's a brief outline of my talk. I want to talk broadly about food security and the UK agri-food sector, the role of the BBSRC that we have in supporting training, and it's worth mentioning now that ATP is a unique scheme that we run. Most of our schemes are directed towards, I'm sure you know, studentships and postdocs and fellows. This is the only scheme that is actually directed solely towards the needs of industry and industrial sector. And then I'll touch briefly on the ATPs themselves, although Jerry gave a summary there, because the rest of the day is about this ATP in particular. So what do we mean by food security? Well, this really kicked off kind of in the past couple of years with as a lot of these things in government kick off with, a report. And this report stemmed a number of reports. This is the Foresight report that reported to John Beddington, the future of food and farming, and it's quite a tome, but essentially it recognised that there were 5 main challenges to do with feeding the world as we are progressing into the 21st century. Balancing food supply and demand, stability in food supplies, access and ending hunger, climate change issue, and maintaining biodiversity in the ecosystem. And the report recognised that the UK is a key player in this because we have a very dynamic agri-food sector, but we also have a very dynamic research base which can help work together and solve some of these problems. Oh. Sorry. So what are the challenges and the goals for the UK agri-food sector? And the report recognised a couple of I think there was 12 different recommendations. I'm not going to go through all 12 of them, but they're in the report. As I say, it's a bit of a hefty tome, so that caution there. But one of the key things was spreading best practice and investing in new knowledge, and that's where the research councils come in. So a little bit about the agri-food sector and the food security in the UK. The agri-food sector is one of the largest sectors that we have. 1 in 7 of people employed in the UK is within the agri-food sector, and that's broad from farm to fork. Estimated about 80 billion per annum in 2010. And what the report recognised was that BBSRC should be working with partners through the Global Food Security Programme. We lead this on behalf of a number of public sector organisations and funders, including 5 of the research councils, DEFRA, I believe DEX in it, Scottish Government, the Welsh Assembly Government, and BIS. And we recommended that BBSRC should take an active role in providing training for industry within the agri-food sector, and particularly high-level training. So I'm not going to be talking today about apprenticeships or technicians, which we recognise are a very important element of the sector. And this is a piece of work that we're starting to think about a little bit more. But this is high-level training, and when we mean high-level, we're talking at kind of postgraduate, masters, and postdoc level. One of the key outputs, one of the key impacts from the research base are skilled people. And we believe, and the government believes, that actually providing the skilled people will help drive research and innovation, which in turn will help drive technology transfer from the research base through into industry. But the level of skills available really do affect the industry's capacity to grow and to innovate. And this is recognised through the Food Research Partnership, another cross-government body that fed into the Beddington report on food, which recognised that actually the agri-food sector was perhaps not taking advantage of the advances in biology and other sciences that have taken place over the past 5 to 10 years. And what we're looking at through the ATP programme is to try and increase these interactions, and this is this is so important, and that's why the 4 ATPs have been funded, to try and interact more with the research base and get the high-level skills that are, within the research base into industry. So this is quite a wordy slide, and I apologise, but essentially this summarises the recommendations and conclusions of this Food Research Partnership Skills Subgroup report, which fed into the Bonington report, saying that there was insufficient knowledge exchange between industry and the research base. As we said, there are very few people undertaking masters and doctorates relevant to the agri-food sector. There was actually a relatively low user demand for these skills, but we wonder whether that is because the knowledge between the two sectors is slightly not quite there yet. And we identified skills, high-level skills for the agri-food sector as an important strategic driver for us in the next couple of years. It's important to mention that the niche skills, and this is something that we're concerned about more generally as an organisation, BBSRC, not just in an industry sector, an industry context, but across the research base as well. The niche skills that you may require only a small number within the UK, but they are vitally important for UK competitiveness. Things like crop breeding, large animal research, agronomy, plant physiology. There's a bit on kind of mycology as well, and algal research, soil science. Because we recognise that these are the kinds of skills and these are the kind of people that we require to really help drive the bioeconomy as we're progressing through the next decades or so. So what can the research sector offer? Well, the UK is the world leader in biology. It leads G8 for research productivity. We have, I think, actually even more than that, reading the tweets this morning from Times Higher, but I believe there's at least 4 of the world's top universities within the UK. And we pound for pound, we actually produce more of the outputs than anybody else. So it's a good place to work, and it's a good place to collaborate with the bioscience community. But as I mentioned, the science, the bioscience, has moved rapidly over the past couple of years, and so much so that the example that we always give is that the Human Genome Project took 10 years and hundreds of millions of dollars, sorry, and hundreds of people to do, and now you can do it in a couple of days. So how do you deal with that kind of level of technological advancement? And how does industry keep up with the technological advancements? If we're publishing a paper in the biomedical space, I think there's 2 papers published every minute. How do you keep up with that level of information? And the answer is you can't. And so collaboration is the way you need to do it. And it's worth pointing out that life sciences account for almost 9% of the manufacturing added value in the UK. So the challenge, as I've mentioned, is that vitally important to improve the integration of the life science research base with the agri-food industry sectors to ensure that there's crosstalk and to really drive a kind of an innovative economy and diversify our economy and grow our economy. And so that's what this diagram on the side says. What we're looking for is for the skills in the research base and the skills that the industry sectors have to come together and collaborate more and crosstalk and learn from each other. And so this is where we came up with the ATP, the Advanced Training Partnership Programme. It brings together users and providers of high-level training in the agri-food sector. It's a significant investment for BBSRC. So we invest money on behalf of the UK taxpayer in the research base. So £12 million initiative to create and develop high-level skills for the agri-food sector, to create sustainable partnerships, and we have funded 4 of these partnerships between public and private organisations. And the output, as Jerry mentioned, I've mentioned, is high-level training and CPD for specialist staff employed within the sector in a flexible model, so that it's hopefully try and catch everyone who wants to do these things, so you don't have to do a professional doctorate, you could do 1 or 2 CPD modules, although we would encourage people to do the longer courses where appropriate. So what is the role of BBSRC in sport training? I've mentioned this just briefly, but so we have a very large research budget. It's about £470 million a year from the UK Treasury. The majority of money goes in funding research programs and postdocs and principal investigators and projects within universities and research organisations. But also increasingly training of bioscientists is recognised across government as one of the biggest impacts that we have. Getting trained people, kind of numerate, analytical people from the research base into business, into the economy, into teaching and into the wider economy is a really important thing. We also support knowledge exchange, encourage economic and social impact, and importantly, and increasingly importantly, and particularly in this space, engaging with the public. And that's a really important element of our role, and an increasingly important element of our role is to help researchers and industry work more closely with the public to kind of appreciate some of the nuances and the nuanced challenges that science can address. And we've recognised this because in our strategic plan. I'm not going to dwell on this, but it's a useful indication of where we see UK bioscience going. The key thing for this audience is the fact that we want to maximise the impact of science through skilled people to boost the UK economy, informing policy and improving quality of life. And we'll support high quality PhD training, and this is broadened out a little bit to other types of training such as the ATPs, to ensure the necessary breadth of skills. So going on briefly to covering the ATPs, and Jerry covered this a little bit a minute ago, but I say we've got 4, about 12 to 13 million pound investment over 5 years. So it's a significant amount of investment. And there's the 4 partnerships, all slightly different focuses, or foci, I think is the word. But I'm not going to dwell too much on that. They've all got an online presence. I'm sure you've all been contacted by the ones relevant to your sector. But they cover everything from farm gate through to food processing, manufacturing and fork, and beyond. So I'm not going to dwell on this slide at all, because I think I'm not the best person in the room to talk about the Nottingham Agri-Food ATP. But it's one of 2 of the farm to fork ATPs that we funded. The other one, I think, is Reading. And it addressed the formation of a strategic training hub for the advancement of the UK agri-foods industry across the chain. And again, it promotes the creation of sustainable partnerships, public-private sector partnerships, to help, again, this collaborative and knowledge exchange approach that we're wanting to encourage through the ATPs. So where are we at the moment? Well, again, we'll hear about this a little bit throughout the day, but a portfolio of flexible training and qualifications to suit the end user need are being developed and rolled out by all 4 partnerships at the moment. I think the first ones took place early summer this year. But as the grants progress, we'll see more and more of these. Hopefully there'll be lots of iteration with the users so that they remain fit for purpose. But as Jerry mentioned, we've just picked up a couple of the logos here, but there are lots of interactions with different companies within the sector. And we think that actually this breadth of engagement is a real strength of the partnerships. So what's the significance of the future? Well, hopefully we will achieve the long-term goal, and it is a long-term goal, of upscaling the agri-food sector. We recognise this as such an important sector for the UK economy and for just the general the UK. Because I think hopefully at the end we will have a little bit more food security than we do at the moment. So there are two of us from BBSRC here today, and please feel free to talk to either of us. That's me, obviously. But Georgina, who's who's there is the program manager within BBSRC who leads on managing the ATP program across the patch. So we're both very contactable by email, phone, or on Twitter. So with that, I will leave you. Thank you very much.